The warning lights flashed across every screen in the border station. Red alerts painted the walls in crimson waves. Commander Zektar's four eyes widened as he stared at the readings. His antenna twitched with sudden alertness. Something had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Kethrin space. Something small. Something damaged. Something completely unknown. "Scan it," he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had served the Kethrin Empire for 30 years. His clawed hand gripped the edge of his command console. "Identify the vessel. Full-spectrum analysis. I want to know what we're dealing with." The young officer at the scanner station tapped her controls with quick, precise movements. Her two primary hands flew across the holographic interface while her secondary hands pulled up reference databases. Her face showed confusion, then concern. "Commander, the design doesn't match anything in our database. Cross-referencing with all known ship configurations across 200 species. Nothing. The ship is leaking atmosphere from multiple points. Hull breaches on at least 4 decks. Life support is failing. Power readings are erratic. They're dying out there, sir." Zektar leaned forward, his tall frame casting a shadow over the bridge crew. In 3,000 years, the Kethrin Empire had encountered every major species in this part of the galaxy. They had cataloged every ship design, every technology, every method of faster-than-light travel. They ruled over 200 different alien races across thousands of star systems. They had the most complete database of ship designs in known space. Their intelligence network was legendary. How could this vessel be unknown? How could something cross into Imperial space without their knowledge? "Send a patrol squadron," he said after a moment's consideration. "Capture it intact if possible. Use tractor beams. I want that ship and everyone on it brought to Processing Station 7, and I want to know who they are and where they came from." The orders went out instantly. 3 Kethrin patrol vessels detached from the border station. They were sleek ships, elegant in the way all Imperial designs were. Plasma cannons mounted on rotating turrets, energy shields that could withstand massive impacts, faster-than-light drives that could cross sectors in hours. The peak of military technology developed over millennia. The unknown ship didn't resist. It couldn't. The vessel drifted in space like a dying animal. Its engines were cold, its weapons offline. When the patrol ship surrounded it with tractor beams, locking it in place with invisible fields of force, there was no struggle. No attempt to escape, just silence. Zektar watched through the camera feeds as his crews approached the alien vessel. The ship was strange-looking, not elegant like Kethrin designs with their flowing curves and artistic flourishes, not organic like the Velshara grew their ships from living crystal, not geometric like the Mektis built their cube-shaped vessels, just functional. Metal and composites welded together in patterns that seemed almost primitive. Hull plating bolted on in layers, external pipes and conduits running along the surface. It looked like something assembled in a hurry, or built by a species that valued function over form, but it had crossed between stars. That meant whoever built it had achieved faster-than-light travel. That meant intelligence, technology, civilization. It meant they were worth understanding, even if just to classify them properly in the Imperial records. The boarding team cut through the airlock. The ship's systems were too damaged to respond to standard docking protocols. Inside, emergency lights flickered in darkened corridors. The air was thin and cold. Water vapor formed clouds from the boarding team's breath even through their suits. They found 47 survivors. They were in bad shape. Seriously bad shape. Malnourished to the point of starvation. Dehydrated with cracked lips and sunken eyes. Some had injuries that had healed poorly over time, leaving scars and crooked bones, burns that had scarred over, fractures that had set wrong. The ship's medical bay was nearly empty of supplies. Food stores were exhausted down to the last emergency rations. The life support system was held together with improvised repairs using materials that were never meant for that purpose. It was a miracle they were alive at all. The survivors were bipedal, which was common enough among spacefaring species, 2 arms, which was standard, 2 legs for locomotion, 1 head containing the primary sensory organs. They stood about average height compared to most species, maybe a bit shorter than Kethrin's but taller than Mektis. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink and everything in between. Hair on their heads in different colors ranging from black to brown to yellow to red, even some silver gray. They wore simple clothing, torn and dirty from their ordeal, patched many times with whatever materials they could find. They called themselves humans. The word had no meaning in any imperial language. It was simply what they were, what they called themselves. The Kethrin Empire brought them to Processing Station 7. This was standard procedure for unknown species making first contact. Everything followed established protocols that had been refined over centuries. First came the medical examination to ensure they carried no dangerous pathogens. Then the interview process to establish communication and gather information. Then classification to determine their threat level and potential value to the Empire. Finally, placement to integrate them into Imperial society at the appropriate level. Dr. Velmoth examined the humans with great professional interest. She had studied xenobiology for decades, earning multiple advanced degrees. She'd examined hundreds of different species. These creatures were fascinating in ways she hadn't expected. Their biology showed remarkable adaptations. Their muscle density is remarkable, she told her assistant as she reviewed the deep tissue scans. Look at these bone structures. Heavy, dense, calcium-rich, built to handle significant gravity. Probably evolved on a high-gravity world, or at least higher than standard. And their cardiovascular system. 2 separate circuits, one for the lungs and one for the body. Highly redundant organ placement. If one kidney fails, the other continues functioning at near full capacity. 2 lungs. Even their brain has redundancy built in. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. Her assistant studied the data with equal fascination. What about their endurance? The physical testing shows unusual results. Yes, remarkable there too. They have excellent stamina. Not particularly fast in short bursts compared to some species, but they can maintain effort over long periods. Their bodies are built for persistence, for enduring, for surviving. Velmoth made notes on her datapad. Their immune systems are aggressive, possibly evolved on a world with high pathogen diversity, and their healing capacity is above average. They recover from injuries faster than expected. Are they dangerous? Her assistant asked. It was the key question for any new species. Velmoth considered this carefully. Their bodies can handle significant physical stress. They have good strength-to-weight ratio. Natural weapons in their teeth and the bones of their hands can be used for fighting. But they're weak from their journey, malnourished, exhausted. Under normal circumstances, I'd classify them as moderate physical threat level. Nothing the Empire can't handle. We've dealt with far more dangerous species. I'll recommend Category 4 classification, non-threatening. The interviews took longer. Communication was the first barrier. The humans didn't speak any known language. Not Kethrin Standard. Not Imperial trade language. Not any of the 200 languages in the database. They had their own tongue, complex and full of subtle sounds that some species couldn't even hear properly. The Empire's translation computers needed 3 days of constant work to build a working vocabulary from audio samples. The humans cooperated fully, speaking into recorders for hours, repeating words, pointing at objects, acting out verbs. Slowly, painstakingly, a basic translation matrix was built. Finally, communication became possible. Rough at first, with many misunderstandings, but functional enough for interrogation. Intelligence Officer Tharvin conducted the primary interrogation. He was experienced in this work, had interviewed representatives from dozens of species over his career. He knew how to read body language, even across different evolutionary backgrounds, knew how to spot lies and inconsistencies, knew how to extract information while making subjects feel comfortable. He sat across from the human captain in a bare interrogation room. Just a table and 2 chairs, recording devices hidden in the walls. The human was a female with dark skin and tired eyes. She'd been cleaned up, given medical treatment and food, but she still looked exhausted, worn down by whatever she'd experienced. She gave her name as Captain Sarah Chen when asked. "Tell me where you came from," Tharvin said, his translator converting his words into the human language with barely any delay. Captain Chen's voice was hoarse despite the medical treatment. Her hands rested on the table, still bearing the calluses and scars of hard work. "Our colony world. We called it Novoterra, New Earth. We were one of 12 colony ships that left our homeworld generations ago. My ancestors were on that ship. We traveled for decades before finding a habitable planet. We built a life there. Farms, cities, families. We raised children who had never seen Earth. Built a civilization from nothing." "And then?" Tharvin prompted gently. He was good at seeming sympathetic. Pain crossed Chen's face. Real pain, deep pain. Then something attacked us from space. Ships appeared in orbit without warning. We never detected their approach. Never had any communication from them. They just appeared and started firing. Some kind of energy weapon we'd never seen before, destroyed our defensive satellites in the first few minutes. We barely had any defense anyway. We were a colony, not a military outpost. Then they started bombarding the surface, targeting our cities, our farms, everything. What attacked you? This was crucial information. The Empire needed to know about threats in this region of space. We don't know. We never saw them clearly. Never identified their species. Our sensors were primitive. We barely got readings before everything fell apart. Chen's hands clenched on the table. We barely made it to our ship, this ship. It was in orbit, undergoing maintenance. We were lucky it wasn't on the ground. We loaded everyone we could fit. 47 people out of thousands. We escaped while we still could. When we looked back, we saw our world burning. Tharvin made careful notes on his datapad. How long ago was this attack? 4 years. Maybe a bit more. Time gets difficult to track in deep space when you're running for your life. We've been jumping blind ever since. Looking for help. Looking for anywhere safe. Chen's eyes met his directly. Our navigation system was damaged in the attack. We lost our star charts. We've been using emergency protocols, jumping short distances in random directions, just trying to find someone. Anyone. We didn't know where we'd end up. When we detected your space and saw it was organized, inhabited, we hoped you might help us. Where is this Earth you mentioned? Your original homeworld? This was standard procedure. Locate the species' home system to understand their territory and potential threat level. Chen recited coordinates from memory. Long strings of numbers that pinpointed a location in three-dimensional space. Tharvin entered them into the computer with care, double-checking each digit. The result made his brow ridge furrow in confusion. These coordinates show empty space. No star system. No planets. No stellar objects of any kind. Nothing but void. That's impossible, Chen said, and her confusion seemed genuine. Earth is there. We have records, histories, entire libraries of information from Earth, videos, pictures, data. Our ancestors came from there. It's our homeworld. It has to be there. Perhaps your records are corrupted, Tharvin suggested. 4 years in a damaged ship. Data degradation is common. Or perhaps your ancestors gave you false information for some reason. It happens. Cultures sometimes create myths about their origins. Chen shook her head firmly. Our data is backed up across multiple systems. Redundant storage, and it all matches. Earth exists, or existed. Maybe something happened to it. Maybe it was destroyed. Tharvin made more notes. This was interesting but not alarming. Lost colonies with corrupted data were not uncommon in the galaxy. Space was vast. Records got lost. Histories got confused. It was possible these humans were from some other world and had simply confused their history over generations. It happened. The interrogations continued for 2 weeks. Every human was interviewed. Every human told a similar story. Their colony destroyed by unknown attackers, running for years through deep space, lost and desperate, searching for safety. The coordinates they provided for their various homeworlds and colonies never matched real systems. Either they were lying, which seemed unlikely given their condition, or their data was completely wrong, or they came from regions of space the Empire hadn't fully surveyed yet. There were still gaps in the charts. The Empire's analysts gathered to debate the situation. Dozens of experts from different fields, military strategists, diplomatic specialists, xenobiologists, cultural anthropologists, everyone had opinions. They could be refugees from some unknown conflict in an unsurveyed region, one analyst suggested, pointing at star charts. There are areas beyond our borders we haven't explored. Maybe there's a war out there we don't know about. Or scouts for an invasion force, another argued, testing our responses, seeing how we handle first contact. Their story could be cover for reconnaissance. Look at their technology, a third pointed out, pulling up technical schematics of the human ship. Their ship is barely functional. Fusion drives which we abandoned centuries ago. Chemical rockets for maneuvering. No energy shields. No plasma weapons. No antimatter drives. No quantum communicators. They're centuries behind us technologically. What threat could they possibly pose? Even if they're scouts, what could their people do? They're primitives. Primitives who achieved faster than light travel, someone else noted. Barely. Their FTL drive is rudimentary, slow, They probably can't jump more than a few light years at a time. It would take them years to cross the distances our ships cover in days. The debate went on for hours, then days. But in the end, the decision came from the central bureaucracy. The analysis was filed. The recommendations made. The humans were classified as Category 4, non-threat refugee species. They would be dispersed to various labor worlds throughout the Empire. They would work in the mines and factories and farms. They would integrate into the massive workforce that kept the Empire functioning. They would be absorbed into the vast machine of Kethran civilization, just another small thread in the enormous tapestry of 200 species working together under Imperial rule. Captain Chen and her crew were separated. This was standard procedure to prevent refugee groups from clustering together and potentially causing problems. Some were sent to mining colonies deep in asteroid belts, others to agricultural worlds with vast farms, a few to industrial centers where factories ran day and night. They would be scattered across a dozen different systems. They would likely never see each other again. This was how the Empire handled refugees. Spread them out. Make them part of the larger population. Eventually, their distinct identity would fade, and they'd just be workers like everyone else. Before they took her away to her assigned world, Tharvin had one final interview with Captain Chen. It was informal. More of a courtesy than a requirement, but he felt he owed her that much after everything she'd been through. "Your people will be cared for," he told her, trying to be kind. "The Empire provides for those who serve it. Work hard, follow the rules. Don't cause trouble. You'll find peace here. Safety. It's better than dying in space." Chen looked at him with those tired eyes. She'd been given clean clothes, medical treatment, food. She looked healthier already, though still thin and worn. But for just a moment, Tharvin saw something else in her expression. Something that made him uncomfortable. Not fear, not gratitude, not the relief he expected. Something calculating. Something cold. Something that didn't match the exhausted refugee he'd been interviewing for 2 weeks. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice neutral. "We'll do whatever is necessary to survive. We're good at surviving. We've had a lot of practice." They took her away after that, loaded onto a transport with other refugees and workers being reassigned. Tharvin filed his final report. The incident was officially closed. Just another minor event in the endless operations of the Empire. 47 refugees from a failed colony. Nothing important. Nothing worth remembering. He moved on to other duties. Other cases. The humans faded from his mind. But sometimes, late at night, he thought about that look in Chen's eyes. That calculating look, and he wondered if he'd missed something important. He told himself he was being paranoid. The humans were broken survivors of some tragedy. They were grateful for safety. They were behaving exactly as refugees should behave. There was nothing sinister. Nothing hidden. Just people trying to survive. So why couldn't he shake the memory of that calculating look? 6 months after the first human ship arrived, Tharvin was reassigned to a different sector. New threats to investigate. New species to catalog. New problems to solve. The humans disappeared into the vast population of the Empire. Just another species among 200 others. Nothing special. Nothing memorable. He didn't know that on a dozen different worlds the humans were watching everything. Learning every detail of Imperial life. Recording every patrol route. Every security protocol. Every weakness. Every vulnerability. He didn't know that Chen and her crew had memorized every detail of their interrogations. Every question asked. Every security checkpoint passed. Every technology observed. Every piece of information carefully stored in their enhanced memories. He didn't know that the damaged ship had carried hidden data cores. Information gathering equipment that had been recording since they entered Imperial space. Data about the Empire's military strength, fleet positions, political structures, economic systems. All carefully captured during their approach and capture and processing. He didn't know that while the Empire saw refugees, the humans saw a successful infiltration. He didn't know that in the empty space where their coordinates led to nothing, where no stars shone and no planets orbited, there was something after all. Brown dwarfs, failed stars that never ignited properly, too dim to see with most sensors, easy to overlook in the vastness of space. And around those dark objects hidden in the void, a fleet waited. Not 47 humans on one damaged ship. 47,000 humans on 300 ships. Battle-hardened warships. Fully armed. Fully crewed. ready for war, and they were all waiting for the signal that Captain Chen and her team had successfully entered the Empire's territory and begun their reconnaissance mission. The signal came 3 days after Tharvin left the sector, a simple burst transmission. So brief it lasted only microseconds, so low-powered that the Empire's communication networks registered it as background radiation, cosmic noise, static from a distant pulsar. Nothing important. Nothing worth investigating. But 300 light-years away, in the darkness between stars, hidden around brown dwarfs that barely qualified as stellar objects, that signal was received, decoded, understood, and in the deep black of space, engines began to wake. Power systems came online. Weapons were charged. Ships that had been waiting for 2 years started to move. The humans had been running for 4 years. That much of their story was true. But they hadn't been running from anything. They had been running toward something. Toward the Empire that had destroyed their homeworld 400 years ago. The Empire that had never even recorded the incident properly. Just another minor colony clearance operation, preparing space for Kethrin expansion. Nothing important. Certainly nothing worth detailed documentation. The humans remembered. Humanity always remembered. And now, after 4 centuries of preparation, after generations of living in the dark spaces between stars, after building a civilization on frozen rocks orbiting failed stars, after turning their grief into patience and their rage into meticulous planning, the humans were ready. Captain Chen looked up at the twin suns of her new assigned world. She smiled. Not the tired smile of a refugee grateful for charity, but the cold smile of a soldier who had just completed the first phase of a complex mission. She'd played her role perfectly. They all had. Phase 1 complete. Get inside the Empire's borders. Establish presence. Gain access to their systems. Phase 2 already in progress. Learn everything about them. Every weakness. Every routine. Every vulnerability. Phase 3 would come soon enough, and the Empire would never know what hit them. Around her, 46 other humans went about their daily work. Mining ore. Operating machinery. Learning languages. Making friends with other species. Being helpful. Being cooperative. Being forgettable. Being invisible. And every night, in secret moments hidden from surveillance, they recorded everything they learned. Every shift rotation. Every security patrol. Every supply shipment. Every officer's routine. Every weakness in the system that had enslaved 200 species. The data was compiled. Compressed using algorithms the Empire's computers couldn't crack. Hidden and coded transmissions disguised as entertainment broadcasts or personal messages, sent on commercial freight ships heading deeper into Empire territory, received by other human teams who had arrived on different ships over the past months. 6 more ships had arrived according to plan, each one carefully damaged, each one carrying refugees with the same desperate story, each one accepted and processed and dispersed throughout the Empire. The intelligence network grew like invisible roots through imperial space. The Empire never noticed. They were too busy ruling 200 species across thousands of worlds, too confident in their power, too certain that no primitive species could threaten them, too arrogant to imagine that the refugees they'd accepted so generously were actually advanced scouts for an invasion. They had forgotten that the most dangerous enemy isn't the one you can see coming from far away. It's the one you underestimate, the one you dismiss, the one you let inside your walls because you're certain they're harmless. And the Kethrin Empire, in all its 3,000-year-old wisdom and power and glory, had just made the worst mistake in its long history. They had underestimated humanity, and humanity was about to teach them why that was fatal. Commander Velrith had served in Imperial intelligence for 15 years. She was good at her job. She noticed patterns. She asked questions. She didn't ignore things just because they seemed small. Right now, she was looking at something that bothered her. 3 more human ships had appeared over the past 6 months, all at different border sectors, all damaged, all with similar stories of destroyed colonies and desperate flight. The Empire processed them the same way. Medical examination, interrogation, classification as Category 4 refugees, dispersal to labor worlds. Nobody seemed concerned. Why would they be? The humans were cooperative. Their technology was primitive. They worked hard and caused no problems. But Velrith noticed something odd. She pulled up a star map on her display. 4 human ships, 4 different arrival points. She traced their vectors backward. Where had they come from? All 4 vectors pointed toward the same region of space, an area the Empire called Sector 07 Null, empty space. No stars, no planets, no resources, nothing worth claiming. The Empire had surveyed it centuries ago and found nothing of value. So why did all the human ships come from that direction? Velrith dug deeper into the reports. She read every interrogation transcript, every medical scan, every psychological profile. The humans all told consistent stories, too consistent, as if they had practiced, as if they knew exactly what to say. But maybe she was being paranoid. Maybe refugees from the same culture naturally told similar stories. Maybe their histories really were similar. She decided to check on the humans themselves, see how they were adapting to Empire life. The reports surprised her. On Mekthar Prime, a mining colony, human workers had improved efficiency by 12%. They suggested modifications to equipment. They worked longer shifts than most species. They learned the local trade language in record time. On Velter 7, an agricultural world, humans had identified a crop disease before it spread. They understood plant biology. They shared techniques from their lost colony worlds. Production increased. On Industrial Station Kappa, human technicians proved surprisingly skilled with machinery. They could repair almost anything. They adapted to new systems quickly. They never asked for raises or better conditions. Perfect workers. Too perfect. Velrith requested permission to visit several worlds with human populations. Her supervisor approved without much interest. Just another intelligence officer doing routine checks. Nothing important. Her first stop was Mekthar Prime. She wore civilian clothes. She didn't announce herself as intelligence, she just watched. The humans worked in the deep mines. Dangerous work. Most species could only handle short shifts in those conditions. But the humans seemed adapted to it. They worked 8-hour shifts in heat and pressure that would exhaust others in half that time. During the evening shift change, Velrith approached one of the humans. A male with dark hair and weathered skin. His identification tag said his name was Marcus Webb. "Excuse me," she said in standard Imperial trade language. "I'm conducting a labor survey. May I ask you some questions?" Marcus looked at her with brown eyes. Tired eyes, but alert. "Of course, happy to help." "How are you finding the work here?" "It's hard, but honest. We're grateful to have it. The Empire gave us a chance when we had nothing." "Do you miss your homeworld?" Something flickered in his eyes. Pain. Real pain. "Every day, but we can't go back. It's gone. So we make a new life here. Have you had any trouble with the other workers? Different species sometimes have conflicts." "No trouble. We keep to ourselves mostly. Do our work. Follow the rules." He smiled. It looked genuine. "We're just trying to survive." Velrith thanked him and moved on. She interviewed 5 more humans. They all gave similar answers. Polite, grateful, humble, nothing suspicious. But she noticed things. Small things. The humans always positioned themselves where they could see exits. They tracked guard movements without seeming to. When they talked to each other in their own language, they spoke quietly. Too quietly. As if they didn't want translators picking up their words. Maybe she was reading too much into it. Or maybe her instincts were telling her something important. She visited 4 more worlds over the next 2 months. The pattern repeated. Humans working hard, learning fast, causing no problems, being perfect refugees. And everywhere she went, small things were happening. Nothing that would trigger alerts on its own. A data terminal at a shipyard had a brief malfunction. Nothing major, just corrupted files in the inventory system. A communication relay experienced static interference. Technicians fixed it quickly. Just solar radiation, they said. A military supply depot reported a minor accounting error. Some equipment was listed in the wrong location. Someone probably just made a data entry mistake. Each incident happened near a human settlement. But the Empire was vast. Humans were only a tiny fraction of the population. Coincidence happened, except Velrith didn't believe in coincidences. Not this many. She compiled a report. She documented every incident. She traced the timing. She showed the correlation between human arrivals and system anomalies. Her supervisor read it and frowned. Commander Velrith, are you suggesting these refugees are saboteurs? Based on what evidence? The pattern, sir. The statistical correlation. The correlation isn't causation. You've been in intelligence long enough to know that. He closed the report. The humans have undergone full screening. Medical, psychological, technical, they're clean, they're refugees. Yes, they're good workers. Yes, they're smart. That doesn't make them threats. But sir, if we just... Commander, the Empire has real threats to worry about. Rebel movements, pirate fleets, border conflicts. We don't have resources to waste investigating species that have proven to be productive members of society. He leaned forward. Drop this. That's an order. Velrith dropped it. Officially, unofficially, she kept watching. She couldn't let it go. Something was wrong. She felt it in her bones. She started tracking the humans on her own time. Off duty, without authorization. She knew it was against regulations. She didn't care. She discovered something interesting. The humans weren't spreading randomly through the Empire. When she plotted their locations on a map, she saw a pattern. They were positioned near major trade routes, near military supply depots, near communication hubs, near industrial centers, not everywhere, just key locations, places that mattered, places a military force would want intelligence on. She traced the original human ship vectors again, carefully, using better sensors. Deeper scans. She focused on Sector 07 Null, the empty space all the ships came from. Standard scans showed nothing. But Velrith adjusted the parameters. She looked for different signatures. Not regular stars, but failed stars, brown dwarfs, objects too dim for most sensors, and she found them. 7 brown dwarfs in Sector 07 Null, invisible to casual observation. No planets registered around them, but brown dwarfs could have planets. Small ones, cold ones. Hard to detect. She requisitioned a deep space probe. Unofficially. Through channels she wasn't supposed to use. She sent it toward the sector. It would take 3 months to get close enough for detailed scans. She waited. During those 3 months, 5 more human ships arrived at the Empire's borders. Same pattern, damaged, desperate, refugee stories. The Empire processed them and sent them to labor worlds. The human population in Empire space now numbered over 300. Still tiny, still insignificant. But Velrith's concern grew. She noticed something else. The humans were making friends, not with Kethran citizens who were the ruling species, but with the other subject races, the Velshara, the Korthan, the Mektis, species that the Empire had conquered, species that worked in the same mines and factories and farms as the humans. The humans were sympathetic listeners. They shared food. They helped with problems. They told stories about their lost worlds. They built connections, and everywhere they went, whispers grew. Quiet dissatisfaction with the Empire. Old grievances remembered. Questions about whether things had to be this way. Nothing organized. Nothing that looked like rebellion. Just conversations. Just thoughts. But thoughts were where revolution started. Velrith's probe finally reached Sector 07 Null. She accessed its data through her secure terminal. Late at night, alone in her quarters, the scan results made her blood run cold. The brown dwarfs had planets, at least 15, maybe more. Small rocky worlds, too cold for most life, but with structures. Artificial structures, massive ones, and ships. Not 10 ships, not 20, hundreds of ships. Velrith stared at the images. Her hands shook. This was an invasion fleet. A fleet that had been hiding in the dark, waiting. Waiting for what? For their people to infiltrate the Empire, for their spies to gather intelligence, for their saboteurs to weaken defenses. The refugees weren't refugees. They were advanced scouts. The damaged ships weren't accidents. They were theater. A performance designed to make the Empire underestimate them, and it had worked perfectly. Velrith had to report this immediately. She prepared to send an emergency transmission to Imperial Command. Her door chimed. She closed the files quickly. Enter. 3 security officers stepped in. Their faces were hard. Commander Velrith, you're under arrest for unauthorized intelligence gathering. You will come with us. Her supervisor appeared behind them. He looked disappointed. I told you to drop this, Commander. You didn't listen. You accessed restricted probe networks. You violated protocols. You've left me no choice. Sir, you don't understand. The humans are not the threat here. You are. Your paranoia is the problem. He gestured to the guards. Take her. She'll be reassigned after a psychological evaluation. They escorted her to a detention cell, not a prison, just a holding area. She would be evaluated, possibly demoted, possibly discharged from service, but not punished severely. Just removed from intelligence work. She sat in the cell and realized what had happened. The system anomalies, the data corruptions, they weren't random. The humans had been slowly compromising Imperial networks, including intelligence networks. They had known she was investigating. They had arranged for her to be stopped. Not killed. That would draw attention. Just removed from the equation. It was brilliant. She was scheduled for transport to a psychiatric facility in 2 days. The transport would take her through 3 different systems. Standard routing for prisoner transfers. But on the 2nd day, something happened. An alarm blared through the station. Emergency protocols activated. Velrith heard shouting in the corridors. Running feet. Weapons fire. Her cell door opened. A human female stood there, young, wearing the uniform of a station technician. She gestured urgently. Commander Velrith, come with me if you want to live. Who are you? Someone who thinks you're right. Someone who doesn't want what's coming. The woman looked back down the corridor. The attack has begun. Not here, not yet. But soon I can get you out. Get you somewhere you can warn people. But we have to go now. Velrith hesitated. This could be a trap. But the alarm was real. The chaos was real, and she believed the woman. She ran. They made it to a maintenance shuttle. The human woman piloted them away from the station. As they escaped, Velrith saw something on the scanners that confirmed her worst fears. Ships were dropping out of FTL in multiple sectors. Dozens of ships. Human ships. Not damaged, not desperate warships. The invasion had begun, and the Empire had no idea it was already losing. Admiral Ketho stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Dominant Will. He commanded the 3rd Fleet, 3,000 warships. The pride of the Empire's military. He had fought in border skirmishes, put down rebellions, protected the Empire for 40 years. He had never seen anything like this. The tactical display showed red markers everywhere. Human ships, 50 of them had appeared in his sector 3 hours ago, just dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. 50 ships against his 3,000. He should have laughed. Any sane commander would have laughed. But then the first battle happened. The humans hadn't engaged his main fleet. They hit his supply convoy instead. 15 cargo ships carrying fuel and ammunition, escorted by 20 warships. The human attack was brutal and fast. They didn't close to normal engagement range. They stayed at extreme distance and fired projectiles. Solid metal slugs accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The Empire's energy shields were designed to stop plasma and laser weapons. The shields couldn't stop solid matter moving at relativistic velocity. The projectiles punched through shields like they weren't there, tore through hull plating, detonated fuel tanks, destroyed ships in seconds. The escort warships tried to return fire. Their plasma cannons had effective range of about 200,000 kilometers. The human ships were firing from over 1 million kilometers away. By the time the escorts could close the distance, 10 cargo ships were gone. The remaining 5 jumped to FTL and escaped. The escorts tried to pursue the human ships. The humans simply accelerated away. Their ships were faster, more maneuverable. They led the escorts on a chase that lasted 2 hours. Then the humans turned and fired again. This time they used missiles, nuclear-tipped missiles that detonated at close range. The Empire's shields could handle nuclear explosions. But these weren't normal nuclear weapons. These were nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers. The nuclear explosion pumped energy into laser rods that fired in the microseconds before the weapon destroyed itself. Concentrated X-ray beams that burned through shields and armor. 15 escorts went in. 4 came back. Admiral Kethos watched the battle recordings with growing disbelief. The human weapons were primitive. No energy weapons. No plasma, no antimatter, just kinetics and old-style nuclear devices. But they worked, and the humans used them with terrifying skill. Analysis, he ordered his tactical officer. Sir, the human ships appear to be built on different principles than ours. They don't have shields, but they have extreme armor redundancy, multiple hull layers, compartmentalization. One of their ships took a direct plasma hit that would have destroyed any of our cruisers. It survived. Damaged, but functional. How is that possible? They're built to take damage, sir. Their ships don't have single critical systems. Everything is redundant. Multiple reactors, multiple command centers, multiple life support systems. You can't kill them with one hit. You have to literally tear them apart. Kethos studied the display. And their weapons range? Far superior to ours. They use ballistic targeting. No energy weapons to give away their position. By the time we detect the projectiles, they're already hitting us, and their missiles can be fired from extreme range with minimal energy signature. What about their crews? Unknown, sir. But based on the maneuvers they're pulling, they can handle much higher acceleration than our species. Some of their turns should have killed any crew. They survived. Kethos made a decision. Send a message to Imperial Command. Request reinforcements, and tell all ships to maintain defensive formations. No more pursuing human vessels. We need to protect our supply lines. The message went out. Imperial Command responded with confusion. 50 human ships? Against the might of the Third Fleet? Surely this was a minor incident. Just handle it. But Kethos knew better. This wasn't a minor incident. This was a coordinated attack by an enemy that understood exactly how to hurt the Empire. Over the next 2 weeks, the attacks continued. The humans hit supply convoys, isolated patrol groups, communication stations, always at range, always hit and run, never staying to fight a pitched battle. The Empire's fleets had superior numbers, but the humans controlled when and where battles happened. They had the initiative. And then Kethos discovered something worse. His logistics network was failing. Supply ships weren't arriving on schedule. Communication with some bases was intermittent. Orders were getting scrambled. Ships were being sent to the wrong locations. Find out what's happening, he ordered his staff. The investigation revealed the problem. The Empire's logistics system had been compromised. Someone had been making subtle changes to the network over the past 2 years, changing routing protocols, altering inventory databases, creating errors in navigation data. The changes were small. Individually, they meant nothing. But together, they created chaos, and the timing couldn't be coincidence. This corruption had been happening since the first human refugees arrived. Kethos called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. The refugees, he said, they weren't refugees. They were saboteurs. They've spent 2 years infiltrating our systems, learning our networks, setting up this attack. His intelligence officer looked sick. Sir, if that's true, then we have a bigger problem. There are hundreds of human refugees throughout the Empire, all on key worlds, near important facilities. Are they still there? We don't know, sir. Communication with many worlds is disrupted. We can't get clear information. Kethos felt cold dread in his chest. Try to contact the garrison on Mekthar Prime. That mining world has one of our largest human populations. They tried. The communication channels were down. Satellite relays weren't responding. It took 6 hours to establish contact through an alternate route. The garrison commander's face appeared on screen. He looked exhausted. Behind him, fires burned. Admiral, the commander said, we're under attack. The humans rose up 3 days ago. They had weapons hidden, explosives. They hit our armory first, then our communication center, then our power station. We've lost control of the mines. Half the base is gone. We're holding the command center, but barely. How many humans? 47 on this world, sir. Just 47. But they've armed every dissident and rebel among the other species. Thousands are fighting us now. And the humans themselves, he paused. Sir, they're soldiers. Trained soldiers, not refugees. They fight like they've been doing this their whole lives. The transmission cut out. Kethos tried to re-establish contact. He couldn't. Reports started coming in from other worlds. The pattern repeated. Human populations rising up. Armed rebellions. Key facilities destroyed. Garrisons under siege. And more human warships kept appearing. Not in one location. Everywhere. Small groups of ships hitting targets across dozens of sectors. The Empire scrambled to respond. Fleets were redirected. Reinforcements dispatched. Martial law declared in affected sectors. But the Empire's military was designed to fight large battles. Set-piece engagements, not guerrilla warfare across hundreds of worlds. Not an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere. Imperial Command finally understood the threat. They ordered all available fleets to converge on a single location, the Karak Nexus, a major hub connecting 12 different sectors. If the Empire could force the humans to fight there, they could use their numerical superiority. 3,000 ships against a few hundred, the Empire would win. They sent the message on open channels. They made it clear they were massing forces. They wanted the humans to know. They wanted the humans to either run or fight. The humans chose to fight. Admiral Kethos took command of the combined Imperial forces. 10,000 ships, capital ships, cruisers, destroyers, support vessels. The largest fleet assembled in 50 years. They arrived at Karak Nexus and found 400 human ships waiting. The humans had accepted battle on the Empire's terms. This was suicide for them. Glorious victory for the Empire. The battle began. The humans opened fire first. Thousands of missiles launched simultaneously. Nuclear-pumped lasers, kinetic kill vehicles, even old-style nukes. A wall of death crossing the distance at relativistic speeds. The Empire's shields held. Mostly. Some missiles got through. Ships took damage. But the shields absorbed the worst of it. This was what shields were for. The Imperial fleet returned fire. Plasma cannons blazing. Energy weapons flashing across space. The Empire's firepower was devastating. The human ships took hits. Direct hits. Multiple hits. Ships that should have exploded just kept fighting. Damaged, burning, but functional. How are they still operational? Kethos demanded. They're not fighting like our ships, sir, his tactical officer reported. They're built like fortresses. Thick armor, compartmentalized design. We're hurting them, but we're not killing them fast enough. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships on both sides died, but the ratios were wrong. The Empire was losing 5 ships for every human ship destroyed. At these rates, even with superior numbers, the battle would be close. And then Kethos realized the trap. While the Empire's entire military was committed here, the humans were striking everywhere else. The intelligence reports came through in fragments. Human forces hitting supply depots, shipyards, industrial centers, and the rebellions. Hundreds of worlds erupting in chaos. The Empire had been baited. They'd committed everything to this battle. And while they fought, the humans were destroying their infrastructure. Kethos tried to withdraw. He ordered a fighting retreat. The fleet would pull back, regroup, protect critical assets. But the withdrawal was chaos. His ships had been fighting at close range. Pulling back while under fire was nearly impossible. The humans pressed their advantage. They knew the Imperial fleet was trying to escape. They focused fire on the engines. Disabled ships couldn't retreat. The battle became a slaughter, not of the humans, of the Empire. When the Imperial fleet finally jumped to FTL, they left behind 3,000 destroyed ships. The humans lost 60. Kethos stared at the casualty reports. 30% of the Empire's military, gone. In one battle. And across the Empire, worlds were falling. Not to the human fleet, to internal rebellions aided by human advisors. Species that had been conquered centuries ago remembered their freedom. The humans gave them weapons, training, hope. The Empire was burning, and nobody knew where the human fleet had come from. Nobody could find their homeworld. Their supply bases, their shipyards, they were ghosts, striking from the dark, disappearing into the void. Kethos realized the truth. Humanity didn't have a homeworld to defend. They were nomadic. They'd been living in deep space for generations, in hidden bases around brown dwarfs and rogue planets, in the dark places between stars where nobody looked. You couldn't invade them. You couldn't threaten their worlds. Because they didn't have worlds, they were the void itself, and the void had come for the Empire. Emperor Thalric sat in his throne room and watched his empire collapse. The holographic displays showed the situation across all controlled space. Red indicators everywhere, rebellions on 300 worlds, human attack groups hitting targets in 40 sectors, supply lines broken, communication networks failing, military forces scattered and demoralized. 3 months. Just 3 months since the war began. And the Empire was losing. How? He asked his assembled council. How did this happen? We rule 200 species. We have the most powerful military in the galaxy. How are we losing to these primitives? His military commander, General Vexthor, stepped forward. Your Majesty, the humans don't fight like any enemy we've faced. They don't hold territory. They don't defend fixed positions. They strike and disappear. We can't bring our superior numbers to bear because we can't pin them down. Then adapt. Change tactics. We're trying, Your Majesty. But there's another problem. Our logistics network has been compromised. Orders are getting scrambled. Supply ships arrive at wrong locations. Reinforcements get sent to empty space. The humans spent 2 years sabotaging our systems. We're still trying to fix it, the intelligence minister spoke up. The human infiltrators weren't just gathering information, Your Majesty. They were building networks, making alliances with dissident groups, recruiting rebels. When the war started, they had support structures already in place across the Empire. Thalrix's claws tightened on his throne. What about the human homeworld? Find it, attack it, make them defend something. We've searched, Your Majesty. Sector 07 Null, where their ships originated, contains only brown dwarfs. We've sent scout ships. They found evidence of habitation. Abandoned bases, but no current population. No shipyards, no fleet. The humans aren't there anymore. Then where are they? Everywhere and nowhere, Your Majesty. Our intelligence suggests they're nomadic. They live on ships and mobile stations. They hide in the dark spaces. Places we don't monitor because there's nothing there. Thalrix stood. Then we force them to fight on our terms. We make them come to us. He gestured to the star map. Identify our most critical systems, core industrial worlds, major population centers. Concentrate our remaining fleets there. When the humans attack, we'll be ready. We'll make them pay for every target they hit. The military commanders looked uncertain, but they had no better plan. Over the next month, the Empire withdrew from frontier systems. They abandoned remote colonies. They pulled forces back to the core worlds, 30 systems, the heart of Kethran civilization, heavily defended, fortified, let the humans raid the empty borders. The Empire would protect what mattered. At first it seemed to work. The human attacks in the core regions failed. The concentrated defenses were too strong. The humans lost ships, they retreated, but the outer systems fell to rebellions. Species that the Empire had conquered now broke free. They declared independence, formed their own governments. With human advisors helping them, the Empire was shrinking. Emperor Thalrix called for a final solution. We end this now. We draw the humans into a decisive battle. We destroy their fleet completely. The bait was Kethran Prime itself, the homeworld, the capital. Thalrix announced he would be giving a public address from the capital. He made sure the announcement was broadcast on channels the humans could intercept. The message was clear. Attack the capital, and you'll find the Emperor himself. 7,000 Imperial warships gathered in orbit around Kethran Prime. Every defensive station was online, every weapon system armed, minefields deployed, fighter wings ready. The trap was set and the humans came. Not immediately. They weren't stupid. They waited 3 weeks, studying the defenses, probing the perimeter, looking for weaknesses, then they attacked. 600 human ships, the largest concentration of their fleet anyone had seen. The battle began at extreme range. Human missiles streaked across millions of kilometers. The Empire's defensive systems shot most of them down. The few that got through were absorbed by shields. The human ships closed in. They had to. At extreme range, they couldn't do enough damage. They needed to get closer to use their kinetic weapons effectively. The Empire's fleet was ready. As the humans closed, they entered range of the plasma cannons. Thousands of weapons fired simultaneously. The humans took horrific casualties. Ships exploded. Ships died. Ships burned. But the survivors kept coming. They crashed into the Imperial formation like a hammer. At close range, their weapons were devastating. Railguns firing metal slugs at impossible velocities. Point defense lasers cutting through armor. Missiles fired almost at touch range. The battle became brutal. Ships grappling in space. Weapons firing at point-blank range. It was chaos. Exactly what the Empire wanted. In close combat, numbers mattered. And the Empire had numbers. 3 hours into the battle, General Vex Thor reported to the Emperor. We're winning, Your Majesty. We've destroyed or disabled 200 human ships. They can't sustain these losses. They'll have to retreat soon. How many have we lost? 800 ships, Your Majesty. But we can afford it. They can't. Thalrix watched the battle displays. Victory was close, costly but real. Then the alert started coming in. Your Majesty, an officer's voice cracked with panic. We're receiving emergency signals from across the Empire. Multiple systems under attack. Major attacks, not raids. Full invasions. Thalrix felt ice in his veins. What systems? Industrial complexes, shipyards, fuel refineries, resource processing centers. All of them hit simultaneously. The trap hadn't been for the humans. It had been for the Empire. While the Imperial fleet fought at Kethrin Prime, the humans struck everywhere else that mattered. They'd baited the Empire into concentrating forces at the capital. Then they attacked the undefended infrastructure. How many human ships? At least 1,000, Your Majesty. Maybe more. They're hitting 20 systems simultaneously. 1,000? But we're fighting 600 here. They have more ships than we estimated, Your Majesty. The battle at Kethrin Prime suddenly didn't matter. The Empire could win here and lose the war. Without shipyards, they couldn't replace losses. Without fuel refineries, ships couldn't operate. Without factories, they couldn't make weapons. Vexthor made the call. All ships, break off engagement. Jump to designated systems. Defend the infrastructure. The Imperial fleet tried to disengage, but the humans didn't let them leave easily. They pressed the attack. Disabled ships that tried to flee. The orderly retreat became a panicked rout. Half the Imperial fleet made it away. The other half died trying. And in those other 20 systems, the battles were already over. The humans had struck fast and hard. They destroyed what they could and left before reinforcements arrived. Shipyards burning. Refineries demolished. Factories ruined. Centuries of industrial development, gone in hours. Emperor Thalrix received the reports in his throne room. He looked at the numbers, the statistics, the projections. At the current rate of attrition, the Empire would run out of functional warships in 6 months. They couldn't build new ones fast enough, couldn't repair damaged ones, couldn't fuel the ones they had, and the rebellions were spreading. 70% of subject species were now in open revolt. The humans armed them, trained them, coordinated them. The Empire was dying. We can negotiate, his diplomatic advisor suggested. Open communications with the humans. Discuss terms. Negotiate? With refugees. Thalrix's pride rebelled at the thought. They're not refugees, Your Majesty. They never were. This was planned, all of it, from the first ship that arrived. They played us perfectly. Thalrix sat back down on his throne. He felt old, tired. What do they want? We don't know. They've never stated demands. They just keep fighting. An intelligence officer stepped forward. Your Majesty, we've discovered something. About the humans. About who they are. Tell me. 400 years ago, the Empire was expanding into new regions, clearing space for colonies. There was an incident. A pre-FTL species discovered on a habitable world. The world was designated for Kethrin settlement. The species was ordered to be relocated, and the relocation failed. The species resisted. Rather than waste resources on a protracted operation, the regional commander authorized orbital bombardment. The world was rendered uninhabitable. The species was presumed extinct. It was recorded as a minor incident, not worth detailed documentation. Thalrix felt something cold settle in his stomach. What was the species called? Humans, Your Majesty. Silence filled the throne room. They survived, Thalrix said quietly. Some escaped. In generation ships. And they've been preparing for 400 years. Yes, Your Majesty. This isn't a war of conquest. This is revenge. Yes, Your Majesty. Thalrix looked at the displays again. The red indicators. The collapsing borders. The dying empire. Revenge was a powerful motivator. The humans hadn't forgotten. They'd never forgotten. They'd spent 4 centuries planning this. Learning, building, waiting. And they'd waited until they were ready. Until they could strike with perfect precision. Until they could destroy the empire that had destroyed their world. Can we win? He asked. Nobody answered. The silence was answer enough. Send a message, Thalrix said, to the human fleet. Whatever flagship they have. Tell them I wish to negotiate. Not surrender, not yet. But I want to talk. The message went out on all channels. Broadcast widely. No response came for 3 days. Then a single human ship appeared in orbit around Kethrin Prime. One ship. Scarred and battered, bristling with weapons. It moved slowly, deliberately, like a predator circling wounded prey. A communication came through. Text only, no voice. No video, we will talk. Send a representative to these coordinates. Come alone. If you try anything, your homeworld burns. Coordinates followed. A location in space, far from any stations or fleets. Emperor Thalrix made a decision. I'll go myself, his advisors protested. Too dangerous. Too risky. Let someone else go. No, Thalrix said. This is my empire. My responsibility. If we're going to end this, I need to face them myself. He took a small shuttle. Just him and a pilot. They flew to the coordinates. A human ship waited there. That same scarred vessel. It was called Remembrance. The name felt appropriate. A docking port extended. Thalrix entered. The corridor beyond was stark. Metal walls, functional design, no decoration, no luxury. This was a warship, built by a people who'd lived in darkness for 400 years. He walked through corridors until he reached a conference room. A human waited there. Female, dark skin, gray hair, eyes that held centuries of grief and rage. Emperor Thalrix, she said. Her translator made the words flat, emotionless. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. Thalrix stared at her. The captain. From the first ship. Yes. It was all theater. The damaged ship. The refugees. All of it. Yes, why talk now? You're winning. Chen gestured to a chair. Thalrix sat. She remained standing. Because this can end two ways, Chen said. The hard way, or the harder way. Explain. The hard way. Your empire dissolves. The species you conquered go free. You return to your core systems and never expand again. Humanity disappears back into the dark. You never see us again. Unless you threaten another species' existence. Then we return. And the harder way? Chen's eyes were cold. Your homeworld becomes what you made ours. Ash and radiation. Your species learns what it means to lose everything. Thalrix felt fear. Real fear. You would commit genocide? You already did. To us. Silence stretched between them. I didn't give that order, Thalrix said. That was 400 years ago. Different rulers. Different time. And yet you benefited from it. Your empire was built on worlds cleared of their native species. You ruled species you conquered and enslaved. The empire continues the crime. Chen sat down across from him. We don't want to destroy you, Emperor. We want to destroy what you built. The empire. The system that says might makes right. The system that kills entire species for convenience. If I agree to your terms, will you stop? If you agree and follow through, we'll stop. But we'll be watching always from the dark. If the empire reforms, if you start conquering again, we'll return. And next time we won't talk first. Thalrix looked at this human, this survivor of his empire's cruelty. He saw the determination in her eyes, the certainty she would do it. If he refused, she would reduce Kethrin Prime to a dead world. Just as the empire had done to Earth, I need time, he said, to convince my people, to dismantle the systems. This will take years. You have 1 month to begin the process. Announce the dissolution. Release the conquered species. Withdraw your fleets to your core worlds. Do this, and we'll allow time for the full transition. And if I refuse? Chen stood. Then say goodbye to your world, Emperor. She left the room. Thalrix sat there alone, surrounded by the walls of a ship built by the species his empire thought it had erased. He made his choice. Emperor Thalrix returned to his throne room. His advisors gathered quickly, eager to hear what the humans had demanded. They want the empire to end, he said simply. Silence. Then, outrage. Unacceptable. General Vexthor slammed his fist on the table. We can still fight. We can rebuild our fleets. We can do nothing, Thalrix interrupted. Look at the situation honestly. We've lost 70% of our industrial capacity. Half our fleet is gone. 3/4 of our territory is in rebellion. We're fighting a war we cannot win against an enemy we cannot find. His diplomatic advisor spoke carefully. Your Majesty, if we surrender, the Kethrin people will see it as weakness. There will be unrest, possibly civil war among our own population. And if we don't surrender, there will be no Kethrin people left. Thalrix pulled up the holographic display. The humans have positioned ships in orbit around our 12 most populated worlds. Just 1 ship per world, but each ship carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet. They're not bluffing. The room fell silent again. I've seen their admiral, Thalrix continued. I looked into her eyes. She will do it. Without hesitation. Without remorse, because we did it to them first. That was 400 years ago. To them it was yesterday. They've kept the memory alive, passed it down through generations, taught their children about the world they lost. about the empire that took it from them. Thalric sat down heavily. We created this enemy. We taught them that empires destroy worlds. Now they're teaching us that lesson. His intelligence minister cleared his throat. Your Majesty, there may be another consideration. Our analysis suggests the humans could have destroyed us completely, but they didn't. They specifically targeted military and industrial sites, avoided civilian populations when possible. This indicates they're not interested in genocide. They want the empire gone, not the Kethran species extinct. Small comfort, but important, Your Majesty. It means negotiation is possible. It means they'll keep their word if we keep ours. Thalric looked at each advisor in turn. I'm going to do this. I'm going to announce the dissolution of the empire. I need you all with me. If anyone disagrees, speak now. General Vexthor spoke first. I hate it, but I see no alternative that doesn't end in our extinction. I'll support the decision. One by one, the others agreed. Some reluctantly, some with relief, but all agreed. The next day, Emperor Thalric made a galaxy-wide broadcast. Citizens of the Kethran Empire, subject species, all those who hear this message, I speak to you in our darkest hour. The Empire faces an enemy we cannot defeat, an enemy we ourselves created 400 years ago when we destroyed their homeworld. The humans have returned, and they have shown us the price of our expansion, of our cruelty, of our belief that might makes right. He paused, letting the words sink in. Effective immediately, I am dissolving the Kethran Empire. All subject species are granted immediate independence. All conquered worlds are returned to their native populations. The Kethran military will withdraw to our core systems. We will never again expand through conquest. We will never again destroy a species' homeworld. Another pause. This was the hard part. I know many of you will see this as weakness, as surrender. You're right, it is both. But the alternative is the extinction of our species. The humans could destroy us. Instead, they're giving us a chance to survive, to rebuild, to become something better than what we were. The empire is over. It died the moment we committed genocide 400 years ago. We just didn't know it yet. Now we do. Now we must live with what we did and try to be better. He ended the transmission. The response was mixed. Some Kethrans were furious. Riots broke out in several cities. Military units refused to stand down. But most saw the wisdom in the decision. Most wanted to survive. The human fleet maintained position around key worlds, waiting, watching, making sure the empire followed through. Over the next month, the dissolution proceeded. It was chaotic, messy. 3,000 years of empire didn't unmake itself easily. The subject species celebrated, some violently. There were attacks on Kethran colonists, revenge killings. The humans intervened where they could, preventing genocide, even against Kethrans. They didn't want revenge massacres. They wanted justice. There was a difference. Commander Velrith, who had escaped the detention facility and been living on a refugee ship, watched the empire fall. The human woman who'd rescued her, whose name was Lieutenant Maria Santos, stayed with her. You were right, Santos said. You saw what we were from the beginning. I didn't see all of it, Velrith admitted. I thought you were planning an invasion. I didn't understand you were planning liberation. We learned from what happened to us. We survived because a few ships escaped Earth before the bombardment. Generation ships, carrying thousands. We drifted for decades before finding those brown dwarfs, building bases on frozen rocks, living in darkness. Santos looked out at the stars. We had time to think, to decide what kind of people we wanted to be. We could have become like the Empire, built our own power through conquest, but we chose differently. Why? Revenge would have been easier. Revenge was part of it, but not the main part. Santos smiled sadly. We decided that what happened to us should never happen to anyone else. That meant destroying systems that allowed it. Empires, tyrannies, structures built on the suffering of others. So you became guardians. We became what we needed to be. Velrith thought about this. What happens now? The Empire is dissolving. Your mission is complete. Now we disappear. Back into the dark. Back to watching. Santos turned to her. But we'll need help. We can't watch everywhere. Can't know everything. We need people on these worlds. People who remember what happened. Who can warn us if empires start to rise again. You want me to be a spy. We want you to be a witness. A voice. Someone who'll tell the truth about what power does when it's unchecked. Velrith considered. I can do that. 6 months after the initial dissolution announcement, the process was nearly complete. The former subject species had formed new governments, some stable, some chaotic, but all independent, free to make their own choices. The Kethran people withdrew to their core systems, 12 worlds, population centers, industrial bases, enough to maintain their civilization, not enough to threaten others. A new government formed, not an empire, a republic, with representatives from different regions, with checks on power, with laws against expansion and conquest. It would take generations to change the culture, to erase the imperial mindset, but it was a start. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of remembrance and watched the last human ships prepare to depart. The mission was over. The empire had ceased to exist. The species that had suffered under it were free. Setting course for home, Admiral? Her first officer asked. Chen smiled. We don't have a home, Commander. We have hiding places, bases, stations, but no home. You know what I mean? Yes. Set course for Sector 07 Null. Our people will want to hear what happened. The human fleet gathered. 300 ships. Some damaged. Some scarred. All survivors. They jumped to FTL together, disappearing from Imperial space as suddenly as they'd appeared. Captain Sarah Chen, who'd arrived 2 years ago on a damaged ship as a refugee, was the last to leave. She looked at the worlds below, worlds that were free now, because humanity had remembered, because humanity had prepared, because humanity had acted. She thought about Earth, the blue-green world she'd never seen, only knew from old pictures and videos passed down through generations. The world the Empire had destroyed. This was for you, she whispered, for everyone who died, for the children who never got to grow up, for the future that was stolen. We didn't bring you back, but we made sure no other species would suffer what you did. Remembrance jumped to FTL. The last human ship left Imperial space. Behind them, a new era began. 10 years passed. The former subject species of the Empire built their own civilizations. Some thrived, others struggled, but they were free to succeed or fail on their own terms. The Kethran Republic maintained peace in its systems. The transition hadn't been smooth. There were factions that wanted to rebuild the Empire, reclaim lost glory, but they were minorities. Most Kethrans had learned the lesson. Velrith became a teacher. She taught history at a university on the Kethran homeworld. She told students about the Empire, about its crimes, about the price it paid, about the species that survived genocide and returned to ensure it never happened again. The humans could have destroyed us, she told her classes. They had the power, the justification, the right, but they chose differently. They chose to free us from ourselves, to give us a chance to be better. Never forget that, Mercy. Never forget that choice. Across the galaxy, rumors spread. Stories told in bars and markets, whispered by traders and travelers. Stories about mysterious ships that appeared when tyrants rose. When strong governments started conquering weaker neighbors. When genocide threatened, the ships never stayed long. Just long enough to tip the balance, to give the oppressed a chance. Then they disappeared back into the dark. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody could track them. Nobody could find their bases or their homeworld. They were ghosts, legends, maybe not even real, but dictators feared them. Would-be conquerors hesitated. Empires thought twice before expanding, because everyone knew the story. The story of the Kethran Empire, how it ruled for 3,000 years, how it destroyed a homeworld and thought the species extinct, how that species survived, waited, prepared, how that species returned with one ship, and ended an empire. The story was told different ways on different worlds, but the lesson was always the same. In the darkness between stars, something watched, something waited, something remembered. And if you built an empire on the suffering of others, if you destroyed worlds and enslaved species, if you forgot that mercy was stronger than might, the darkness would come for you, on a frozen rock orbiting a brown dwarf in Sector 07 Null. Admiral Chen celebrated her 65th birthday. She was old now, tired, ready to pass command to the next generation. Her granddaughter stood beside her, young, eager, ready to take on the responsibility. Will there ever be peace? The girl asked. Real peace? Will there be a time when we don't need to watch? Chen looked at the stars. At the galaxy humanity had saved from itself. Maybe someday, but not in my lifetime. Not in yours. Maybe your grandchildren will see it. A galaxy where species cooperate instead of conquer, where strength is used to protect, not oppress, where homeworlds are sacred and life is valued. Until then, we watch, we wait, we remember, and when necessary, we act. Chen put her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. That's our duty, our purpose. We're the guardians nobody asked for, the protectors who work in darkness, the memory that never fades. It's a heavy burden. Yes, but it's necessary, because we learned the hardest lesson. We learned what happens when evil goes unchallenged, when power goes unchecked, when mercy is forgotten. Chen smiled. We paid for that lesson with a world. We won't let it be forgotten. The girl nodded, understanding, accepting. Around them, on hidden bases throughout the dark spaces, thousands of humans lived their lives, born in the void, raised in the dark, never seeing a homeworld, never feeling the sun of Earth on their faces, but they knew the stories. They remembered, and they carried the torch. The galaxy turned, stars burned, civilizations rose and fell, and in the darkness humanity watched, waiting for the day when they'd no longer be needed, when species could live without fear of empires, when worlds were safe from those who'd destroy them. Until that day came, the watch continued. In the darkness they waited. In the silence they remembered, and no one knew where the human fleet came from. Only that when empires rose, they fell. When tyrants emerged, they disappeared. When genocide threatened, it was prevented. The empire had learned. The galaxy had learned. Never underestimate the species you thought you destroyed, because they might survive, they might grow strong, they might remember, and they might return. The end of the Kethrin Empire was the beginning of a new age. An age where empires thought twice, where power came with responsibility, where the strong remembered that they could become the weak, all because humanity refused to forget, all because 47 people on one ship had infiltrated the greatest empire in the galaxy and brought it to its knees. The story ended, but the lesson lived on. In the darkness, humanity watched, and the galaxy was safer for it.